Picture this. A gleaming yellow 2025 Chevrolet Corvette ZR1, sitting in a pristine modern showroom, its mid-engine silhouette reflecting perfect studio lighting. Twin-turbo badges glinting. Carbon fiber aero visible. The most powerful production V8 ever announced by a major American manufacturer. 1,064 horsepower of pure American fury. And it's expected to cost less than a well-equipped Porsche 911 Turbo S. Not almost as much. Less. Roughly $55,000 less. For decades, the Corvette has been America's awkward answer to European exotics. Fast enough to compete, cheap enough to afford, but never quite prestigious enough to sit at the cool kids' table. It was always impressive for the money, or surprisingly good. The poor man's Ferrari. The C8 ZR1 isn't just changing that conversation. It's ending it, violently, definitively, with extreme prejudice. 1,064 horsepower. 1,064. Your neighbor's Ferrari 296 GTB, the one he spent $343,000 on, makes 819 horsepower. The Corvette just humiliated it by 245 horses. That's an entire Honda Civic SI's worth of power as the difference, for half the money. Performance doesn't care about badges. When the light turns green, 1,064 horsepower beats 819 horsepower. Every single time. This isn't a Corvette anymore. This is GM dropping a nuclear bomb on the supercar establishment and walking away without looking at the explosion. For 50 years, Europe has condescended to American performance cars. Crude. All straight-line speed. Well, congratulations, Europe. You just got out-sophisticated by Detroit, outpowered by Bowling Green, Kentucky, and outvalued so badly it should be classified as a humanitarian crisis. Let's rewind to 2019, the year Chevrolet killed the C7 ZR1, the last front-engine ZR1 ever built. 755 horsepower from a supercharged LT5 V8. 0 to 60 in about 3 seconds flat. Top speed of 212 miles per hour. Just under 3,000 units were built, 2,053 total, making it instantly collectible, immediately legendary, and the swan song of the front-engine era. But here's the problem. It was still a front-engine Corvette, which meant the stereotype lived on, fair or not. Poor man's Ferrari. Plastic fantastic. Fast in a straight line but can't turn. You've heard them all. The front-engine layout kept critics armed with ammunition even when the engineering was brilliant. The C7 ZR1 was incredible, but it was still carrying 50 years of perception baggage on its front axle. Then came the C8 generation in 2020. Mid-engine layout, finally. After decades of rumors and concept cars, Chevrolet actually did it. Automotive journalists lost their collective minds. Chevrolet went mid-engine. Detroit finally understands physics. As if GM suddenly discovered that putting heavy objects in the middle makes them handle better. A principle every race car designer has known since forever. The base C8 Stingray was genuinely impressive. 490 horsepower. Sub 3 seconds 0 to 60. Starting price under $60,000. Less than a loaded pickup truck. That's Ferrari 458 performance at Toyota Camry money. Handling that finally shut up the critics. Build quality that was actually good, period. Europe was officially nervous. Then came the C8 Z06 in 2023. Naturally aspirated flat-plane crank V8. 670 horsepower. 8,600 RPM redline, higher than most Ferrari V8s. The exhaust note made grown men cry. The handling made Porsche GT3 owners very quiet at Cars and Coffee. Suddenly, Corvette didn't need to apologize for anything. It was legitimately world-class. But GM wasn't done. Not even close. Enter the 2025 Corvette ZR1, the car that made Ferrari engineers check their contracts to see if humiliation was grounds for resignation. When you're charging $300,000 to $500,000 for cars making less power than something Chevrolet is selling for an estimated $175,000, you don't have a product anymore. You have a problem. Under that carbon fiber rear clamshell sits the LT7, a 5.5-liter twin-turbocharged flat-plane crank V8, based on the Z06's architecture but heavily reinforced and redesigned for forced induction. Let me repeat that for the purists having heart palpitations. Twin. Turbo. Flat. Plane. Crank. Corvette purists wanted a supercharger. They demanded a supercharger. GM said no, and then built something better. Chevrolet took the already screaming Z06 engine architecture, strengthened the block for boost pressure, added 2 turbochargers, installed intercoolers the size of carry-on luggage, reinforced everything that could explode under 1,000 horsepower, and sent it to SAE for certification. The result? 1,064 horsepower at 7,000 RPM. 828 pound-feet of torque at 6,000 RPM. When GM first released these numbers, journalists thought it was a typo. For perspective, that's more horsepower than a Bugatti Veyron made. The quad-turbo W16 Hypercar that cost $1.7 million when new. The all-wheel drive, far heavier Veyron made 1,001 horsepower. The rear-wheel drive ZR1 makes 1,064. 63 more horses. You could buy 9 ZR1s for the price of 1 Veyron. Torque? 828 pound-feet at 6,000 RPM, more than most diesel trucks make it idle. That's recalibrate your understanding of acceleration territory. For context, a base C8 Stingray makes 470 pound-feet. The ZR1, 828, nearly double. This is the kind of torque that makes launch control not just recommended, but mandatory. Let that marinate while Europe panics. 0 to 60? GM's staying strategically quiet on that number, probably because they're still fine-tuning launch control to handle 1,064 horsepower without turning Michelin Cup 2R tires into smoke machines. But here's what we do know from GM's official data. The ZR1 runs the quarter mile in under 10 seconds. Under 10. That's hypercar territory, the kind of acceleration that used to require 7-figure budgets and all-wheel drive systems. For context, the all-wheel drive Corvette E-Ray, with its hybrid system and traction advantage, hit 60 in 2.5 seconds. Industry experts estimate the rear-wheel drive ZR1 could potentially match or even challenge that time despite giving up the AWD launch advantage, purely through monstrous power and sophisticated launch control. If it gets anywhere close to 2.5 seconds on rear-wheel drive alone, that would be genuinely extraordinary. Physics-defying. The kind of performance that makes traction engineers wake up in cold sweats. Quarter mile? Chevrolet confirms sub 10 seconds, which means somewhere in the high 9s with the ZTK performance package. That's hypercar territory where cars costing 10 times as much live. The Bugatti Veyron, $3.5 million, runs 9.4. If the ZR1 lands anywhere near 9.6 to 9.8 seconds, it's playing in the same sandbox for 1/20th the price. But here's where GM stopped being coy and started flexing. Top speed. Chevrolet took this ZR1 to ATP Automotive Testing Papenburg in Germany, because America doesn't have tracks long enough for this madness, and officially recorded 233 miles per hour. 233. That's GPS verified, multiple run averaged, German facility certified velocity. That makes it the fastest production car from a major American manufacturer. Faster than every factory Ford GT, every Dodge Viper ACR, every previous Corvette ever built. Faster than the C7 ZR1's 212 by 21 miles per hour. Ferrari's SF90, $1.3 million, tops out at 211. The ZR1 is 22 miles per hour faster for 1/7. The money. Now let's talk about who this car is humiliating, because the list reads like a Supercar Hall of Fame funeral registry. These cars aren't dead. They're just financially DOA compared to what Bowling Green is churning out. Ferrari 296 GTB, $343,000. 819 horsepower from a hybrid V6 plus electric motor. 0 to 60 in 2.3 to 2.4 seconds depending on test conditions. Beautiful, refined, Italian, exotic. The ZR1 potentially matches its acceleration with a pure V8. No hybrid system, no electric assist, while making 245 more horsepower and costing $168,000 less. Let's do the math. Savings versus the Ferrari, $168,000. You could buy the ZR1 and a loaded C8 Stingray for your spouse, and still have money left over for an entire season of track days. Or invest that $168,000 conservatively, and use the returns to pay for tires and insurance for a decade. Porsche 911 Turbo S. Roughly $230,000 base. 640 horsepower from a twin-turbo flat 6. 0 to 60 in 2.2 seconds thanks to all-wheel drive launch advantage. It's legitimately quick, but it makes 424 fewer horsepower than the ZR1, nearly two-thirds the output. It costs $55,000 more and tops out at 205 miles per hour. 28 miles per hour slower than the Corvette. The Porsche costs roughly $55,000 more, delivers 400 horses less, and tops out 28 miles per hour slower. That's not competition. That's a public execution. That's the Corvette taking the Porsche's lunch money, giving it a wedgie, and doing burnouts in its driveway. Still with me? Good, because it gets worse for Europe. The ZR1 comes standard with an 8-speed dual-clutch automatic, the kind that used to be exclusive to six-figure exotics. Magnetic ride control 4.0, adjusting damping 1,000 times per second. Carbon ceramic Brembo brakes measuring 15.7 inches front. Active aerodynamics with a massive rear wing that deploys automatically based on speed and downforce requirements. Add the ZTK Performance package, and you get Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2R tires, barely legal track rubber masquerading as street equipment, aggressive aero adding real downforce, carbon fiber wheels saving unsprung weight, suspension tuning that turns this into a legitimate track weapon. Chevrolet is selling you a turnkey race car for the estimated price of a loaded BMW M5 that makes half the power. But here's the beautiful irony. While Ferrari builds hybrid V6s to meet emissions regulations, while Porsche develops turbo 4s to save fuel, Chevrolet said, "Hold my beer," and built the most powerful production V8 announced by a major manufacturer, then engineered it to meet EPA emissions, California CARB requirements, and federal fuel economy standards. They made a 1,000 horsepower V8 street legal in all 50 states. This isn't just engineering. This is a middle finger wrapped in carbon fiber, certified by the EPA, and validated on a racetrack at 233 miles per hour. It's American excess refined into precision, then tested by German facility standards. It's everything Europe said couldn't be done anyway, with American V8 soundtrack included. Let's talk evolution. The C7 ZR1 made 755 horsepower, impressive for 2019, legendary in context. The C8 ZR1 makes 1,064 horsepower, a 309 horsepower increase. That's a 41% increase in output. That's not evolution. That's revolution wrapped in a mid-engine chassis. Think about the value proposition. For an estimated $175,000, you get SAE certified 1,064 horsepower, a confirmed 233 mile per hour top speed, and sub 10-second quarter miles. A chassis developed with racing pedigree. Aerodynamics validated at triple-digit speeds. Performance that matches or exceeds cars costing $300,000 to $500,000. Is it perfect? No. It's still a Corvette, which means some will dismiss it for not having a prancing horse or Italian postal code. But here's the thing. Those badges cost you $200,000 extra for comparable or less performance. You're paying a $250,000 premium for cachet that means nothing when 1,064 horsepower says, hello. The 2025 Corvette C8 ZR1 isn't trying to be a Ferrari killer. Based on confirmed specs and official testing, it already won the performance battle. It's not trying to beat Porsche. It exceeded Porsche's power by 400 horses, while costing $55,000 less. The only question isn't, is the ZR1 competitive? It's, how does anyone justify buying anything else? This is America building a supercar so good, so fast, and so ridiculously affordable that Europe stopped laughing and started sweating. Because 1,064 SAE certified horsepower and a confirmed 233 mile per hour top speed don't negotiate. They dominate. This is Supercar Chronicles, where we document the moments that change everything. And this is General Motors delivering a tactical nuke on the supercar establishment for the estimated price of a well-equipped Porsche. If you want more stories of underdogs humiliating legends, smash that subscribe button. The automotive revolution isn't stopping, and we're here for every single horsepower.